Reggie, is laxity always sin? And especially in our culture where we have this idea of working your whole life to somehow at the end of your life retire and do nothing for the rest of your life. Um, are we called as Christians to be industrious in every circumstance? Should we? Is there some point where it's okay for us to get supported by the church?
That's a great question, Michael. And what occasions it is here in the Thessalonian letters, Paul is upset because some people, apparently in view of their expectation that the Lord's coming right back, are not working anymore. And he says, no, your job is to work with your hands. His sense is that we're all given some sort of gift and ability so that we have something to contribute to other people's well-being. And that's part of what it is to bear God's image. And it's important for us to do that. But I also think for Paul, he's got this sense as a person of Jewish heritage that there's supposed to be a rhythm, a Sabbath rhythm, so that we don't just burn our batteries over the course of a life so that we just kind of get to the end just totally exhausted. I think, I don't see him envisioning us just getting to a place where I've worked, and now I just quit. Mm-hmm. I think his sense is that we work and rest all the way through our lives and see our lives being not about amassing material wealth and paying enough dues so that finally we just check out. I think for him it's about being productive members of societies and communities as long as we possibly can. Now, it so happens that in the kind of world we live in, lots of people have the opportunity to stop the jobs that they've been carrying out for a long period of time and then have resources made available to them so that they don't have to do that anymore. Those people are in a unique position to kind of go into another phase of ministry. I don't know about you guys, but I've been in churches where, we've almost been staffed by people who were accountants or lawyers or teachers who now are able to come and do really critical functions in our churches. Have you known people like
Mm-hmm.
that?
My parents essentially about 10 years outside of retirement. They pretty much cut it quits and signed on with a full-time mission, and they're loving it. And even though all of their friends are now retiring and they can't do all of the stuff that they would have liked to even 10 years ago, I mean, they're still just loving every second of it. Yeah. And feeling like they're contributing as much as they can towards the kingdom. And it's an encouraging thing for people as well when they go from church to talk about their mission, just to tell them their story and say, I didn't give up. Yeah. This wasn't the end for me. And it was actually just the beginning of the next week. Yeah. I had my Sabbath rest, and then the next week began. And, that more than what they're actually doing, just their story encourages people more than anything else.
One of the most inspirational couples I ever knew was a couple I knew who had retired from the New England area, had settled in South Florida where I was ministering in a church. And God had put prison ministries on their hearts. And this man virtually single-handedly organized prison fellowships ministries in the state penitentiaries in the state of Florida, just by the industry with which he went about it. He would set up interviews with wardens and explain what this ministry was all about, and then he would go and he would recruit people from churches. And all those years of being a very successful businessman had put him in a position where he could do this, and not that many people would have been able to do that. And if Anna in Luke 2 could spend decades serving God's people by praying in the temple, it means that none of us are ever, called off the field until the Lord calls us to Himself.
Yeah, I even think about my grandparents. They're all well beyond the age of retirement, but they're still so involved in the church. My grandmother's constantly cooking for the church. My grandfather gets up at 5:30 in the morning before his morning service and meets with a group to pray. And my other grandmother, she's well in her 70s and she still works. She does domestic work and she's just as energetic as a 20-year-old or something. So I just really think that's a great model when we see senior saints that, don't have this idea that I finally arrived at this age where I can just slow down, if you will. But they keep going and they're so thankful and they're just so on fire for the Lord. In any way, they exhaust themselves for the kingdom.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so awesome to see.
Yeah, there's nothing sadder than seeing a person get to the place where they feel like, well, I'm done. And they just cocoon and they die long before their bodies give out. And there's nothing more exciting than seeing people who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s that are just becoming more alive because they understand that God still has a purpose for them.